Hello everyone. Hope you all are doing well during this lockdown. This is our online lecture series. Myself, Dr. Jyoti Kumbhare, Assistant Professor at R.N. Kapoor Memorial Homeopathic Hospital and Medical College, Indore. Today's our topic is mechanism of respiration and exchange of respiratory gases. Contents, introduction, mechanism of respiration, respiratory movements, respiratory pressure, and exchange of respiratory gases. So, before going to the mechanism of respiration, I would like to include a short about respiration. So, as you all well known about respiration, respiration is the process in living organism involving the production of energy with intake of oxygen and release of CO2 from the oxidation of complex organic substance, or in general we can say that respiration is the process by which oxygen is taken in and CO2 is given out of the body. Respiration is classified into two types. External respiration, that involves the exchange of respiratory gases, that is oxygen and CO2, between lungs and blood. Internal respiration, which involves exchange of gases between blood and tissues. Respiration, normal respiratory rate. Respiratory rate means how much time we breathe within 1 minute. In newborn babies, the respiratory rate is 30 to 60 per minute. Early childhood, it is 20 to 40 per minute. In late childhood, it is 15 to 25 per minute. In adult, means above 18 age, it is 12 to 16 per minute. So, why respiration system? Respiratory system needs oxygen in for cellular respiration and to make ATP, isn't it? And why it need CO2 out as a waste product? Here we'll see respiratory passage, means airways. Air enters through the nasal cavity. As the air enters through the nasal cavity, then it moves to pharynx, larynx, and then into trachea. The trachea forks from two bronchi. Each bronchi branch into numerous bronchioles. And the bronchioles end in the clusters of tiny sac called alveoli. Alveoli is the one cell layer thick wall. This is alveoli. Here, in this alveoli, exchange of the gases takes place. Moving gases into bloodstream. At the time of inhalation, oxygen passes from alveoli to blood by the process of diffusion. And at the time of exhalation, CO2 passes from blood to alveoli by the process of diffusion. This all happen in the capillary system of circulatory system. Gas exchange. Gas exchange takes place by the diffusion of gases. So, diffusion of gases means when the gases moves from high concentration to the lower concentration. Okay, here we'll see external respiration means exchange of gases between alveoli and blood. Okay, as we know that the oxygen concentration is in blood is less, and oxygen concentration is in lung is more. So oxygen moves from higher concentration to lower concentration, and whereas in blood CO2 content is more and in lungs it is less. So carbon dioxide moves from blood to lungs. This is internal respiration, means exchange of gases between blood and cells, blood and tissues. So here in this blood, as we had seen here, oxygen content is more, and whereas in tissue oxygen content is less. So oxygen moves from blood to tissues, and in blood carbon dioxide content is less, whereas in tissues it is more. So carbon dioxide moves from tissues to blood. Mechanism of respiration. First of all, we'll see respiratory movement. Respiration occurs in two phases, inspiration and expiration. Inspiration means inflow of atmospheric air into lungs, whereas expiration means outflow of air from lungs into atmosphere. During inspiration के समय जब हम सांस लेते हैं, thoracic cage enlarge बड़ा हो जाता है और लंग्स भी एक्सपैंड हो जाते हैं, जिसके कारण एयर इजीली एंटर हो जाती है लंग्स में। और एट द टाइम ऑफ एक्सपायरेशन मीन्स जब हम सांस छोड़ते हैं तो थोरैसिक केज और लंग्स डिक्रीज इन साइज और अपनी पुरानी पोजीशन में आ जाते हैं, पहले की प्री इंस्पायरेटरी पोजीशन में आ जाते हैं, ड्यू टू विच एयर इजीली लीव्स फ्रॉम द lungs. Muscles of the respiration. Respiratory muscles are of two major types. Inspiratory muscles means which involve in inspiration, and expiratory muscle which involve in expiration. Both these respiratory muscles are further subdivided into two types: primary or the major respiratory muscle, or accessory respiratory muscle. Primary or major respiratory muscle, which are responsible for the change in the size of thoracic cage during normal breathing. thoracic cage के size को change करने में जो help होती है, that is the primary respiratory muscle. Or accessory respiratory muscle, which help the primary respiratory muscle during forced breathing. So here we'll see the inspiratory muscle. Inspiratory muscles is diaphragm and the external intercostal muscle. And accessory muscles are sternocleidoid muscle, scalene muscle, anterior serrated muscle, elevator of the scapula, and pectoralis. Whereas expiratory muscles, primary expiratory muscles are the internal intercostal muscles, which are supplied by the intercostal nerve. Whereas the accessory expiratory muscles are the abdominal muscle. Movement of the thoracic cage. Inspiration causes, as we have seen, that inspiration causes enlargement of the thoracic cage. Thoracic cage enlarges because of the increase in all the diameter, means anteroposterior, transfer, and vertical. Anteroposterior transfer diameter of the thoracic cage are increased by the elevation of the ribs. जब हम inhale करते हैं तो ribs elevate हो जाती है, जिसके कारण ये anteroposterior transmitter diameter are increased, and vertical diameter is increased by the descent of diaphragm. At the time of inhalation, muscle contracts, and at the time of exhalation, muscle relaxes. Okay. Respiratory movements. Here, when the elevation of the ribs, when there is elevation of the ribs, there is increase in the anteroposterior diameter of the thoracic cavity. This causes this increase in the anteroposterior diameter of the thoracic cavity causes the movement which just look like pump handle. Okay, due to which it is known as pump handle movement. And at the time of elevation of ribs, there is also increase in the lateral diameter of the thoracic cavity, which just look like the bucket handle movement, which is known as bucket handle movement. So movement of the lungs. During inspiration, due to the enlargement of the thoracic cage, the negative pressure increases in the thoracic cavity. It causes the expansion of the lungs. Negative pressure के कारण lungs expand हो जाते हैं, and during expiration, the thoracic cavity decreases in size to the pre-inspiratory position, and pressure in the thoracic cage comes back to the pre-inspiratory level, और जिसकी वजह से lungs compress हो जाते हैं और air easily expelled out of the lungs. Means here we'll see at the time of inhalation, diaphragm contracts and moves down, and at the time of exhalation, diaphragm relaxes, moves up. What are the factors that prevents collapsing tendency of lungs को collapse होने से कौन-कौन से factors बचाते हैं? एक तो होता है intrapleural pressure, means which is always negative, and because of this negativity, it prevents the collapsing tendency of the lungs. Surfactant. It is a substance which is secreted in the alveolar epithelium. Surfactant is a surface acting material or agent that is responsible for the lowering the surface tension of the fluid. This surfactant that lines the epithelium of the alveoli in the lung is known as pulmonary surfactant, and it decreases the surface tension on the alveolar membrane. So next is respiratory pressures. Two types of the respiratory pressures are there: intrapleural pressure or intrathoracic pressure. And next one is the intraalveolar pressure, which is also known as intrapulmonary pressure. What is intrapleural pressure? Intrapleural pressure is the pressure which is existing in pleural cavity, that is in between the visceral and the parietal layer of the pleura, and it is exerted by the suction of the fluid that line the pleural cavity. It is also called intrathoracic pressure since it is exerted in all the thoracic cavity, isn't it? These respiratory pressure are always expressed in relation to the atmospheric pressure, which is 760 mmHg. Physiological condition means under the normal condition, intrapleural pressure is always negative. Means at the time of inspiration, it is minus 6 mmHg. At the end of expiration, it is minus 2 mmHg. At the end of inspiration, it is minus 30 mmHg. So what is the causes of negativity of the intrapleural pressure? As we know that pleural cavity is always lined by a thin layer of the fluid that is exerted by the visceral layer of pleura. This fluid is constantly pumped from the pleural cavity in the lymphatic vessels. Pumping of the fluid creates a negative pressure in the pleural cavity, isn't it? That's why it is negative. And as interpleural pressure is always negative in case of physiological condition, when in case of some pathological condition, disease condition, it becomes positive. In conditions such as pneumothorax, hydrothorax, hemothorax, or pyothorax. Pneumo means accumulation of the gas, accumulation of the air in the pleural cavity. Hydro means accumulation of the water in the pleural cavity. Hemothorax means accumulation of the blood in the pleural cavity, and pyo means accumulation of the pus in the thoracic cavity. During this condition, the interpleural pressure becomes positive. सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ द इंटरप्लूरल कैविटी, क्या क्या फायदे इंटरप्लूरल कैविटी के? ये लंग्स को कोलैप्स होने से बचाते हैं और थोरेसिक रीजन में नेगेटिव प्रेशर को मेंटेन करते हैं, और इंटरप्लूरल प्रेशर वेनस रिटर्न के लिए भी हेल्पफुल होते हैं, इसीलिए इसको रेस्पिरेटरी पंप और वेनस रिटर्न भी कहते हैं. व्हाट इज इंट्राल्वुलर प्रेशर? Intraalveolar pressure is the pressure existing in the alveoli of lungs. It is also known as intrapulmonary pressure. Normally, intraalveolar pressure is equal to the atmospheric pressure, which is 760 mmHg, and it becomes negative during inspiration. Inspiration के समय ये negative होता है और expiration के समय positive होता है. During normal inspiration, it is negative 1 mmHg, and expiration it is plus 1 mmHg, and at the end of inspiration and expiration it is equal to the atmospheric pressure, that is 760 mmHg. So what is the significance of intraalveolar pressure? It causes the flow of air in and out of the alveoli. During inspiration, intraalveolar pressure become negative. Inspiration के समय intraalveolar pressure negative हो जाते हैं, जिसके कारण एटमॉस्फेरिक एयर इजीली एंटर कर जाती है एल्वेलाई में, और एक्सपायरेशन के समय इट बिकम पॉजिटिव, सो एयर इजीली एक्सपेल्ड आउट ऑफ द एल्वेलाई. Interalveolar pressure also helps in the exchange of gases between alveolar air and in the blood. So here we'll see the animated video of respiration.
In respiration, present within the rib cage are the pleural membranes, which enclose the lungs. The right lung consists of 3 lobes, while the left lung has only 2 lobes. Both the lungs are associated externally with bronchi, which unite and extend into the trachea. As we breathe, the oxygen molecules enter the nostrils and travel downwards, through the pharynx and trachea, to finally reach the bronchi. From each bronchus, oxygen travels into the lungs. Within the lungs, the bronchus divides repeatedly to form bronchioles. Oxygen travels through these bronchioles and reaches the alveoli, each of which is surrounded by a network of capillaries. As blood flows through the capillaries, the oxygen molecules from the alveolus diffuse into the capillary. This causes oxygenation of the RBCs. The carbon dioxide molecules are released into the alveolus. They are collected in the alveolar chamber, and then from the alveolus, it travels through the bronchioles. Into the bronchus, which finally reaches the trachea and is breathed out through the nostrils.
So here in this video, we had seen how oxygen enters inside respiratory tract and how carbon dioxide moves out of the respiratory tract. Breathing and homeostasis. Homeostasis means keeping the internal environment of the balance, body balance. How it is balanced? Need to balance oxygen in and CO2 out, and need to balance energy production. And at the time of exercise, we breathe faster. So we need more ATP and bringing in more oxygen and remove more CO2. In the time of disease condition, due to poor lungs or heart function, we also, at this time also we breathe faster, need to work harder to bring in oxygen and remove CO2, carbon dioxide. Exchange of respiratory gases. Oxygen is essential for the cells. Carbon dioxide, which is produced as a waste product in the cell, must be expelled out from the cells and body, and lungs serves to exchange these two gases within the blood. In lungs, exchange of the respiratory gases in lungs. In lungs, exchange of the respiration takes place between alveoli of lungs and blood. Oxygen enters the blood from alveoli and carbon dioxide is expelled out of the blood into alveoli. This exchange occurs with the help of bulk flow diffusion. Bulk flow diffusion means diffusion of the gases from higher concentration to lower concentration. This all exchange takes place in the respiratory movement. Respiratory membrane. Respiratory membrane consists of 6 layers. Upper one is capillary endothelium. Next one is basement membrane, interstitial space, alveolar epithelium, fluid layer, and surfactant. Diffusion capacity. Diffusion capacity matlab the volume of gas that diffuse through the respiratory membrane in 1 minute. 1 minute में कितनी गैस diffuse हो जाती है respiratory membrane से for a pressure gradient of 1 mmHg. Diffusion capacity for oxygen and CO2, it is 21 ml per minute per 1 mmHg, whereas CO2 it is 400 ml per minute per 1 mmHg. Means we'll see carbon dioxide diffusion capacity is 20 times more than that of the oxygen. Diffusion of oxygen. First we'll see diffusion of oxygen. Diffusion of oxygen from atmospheric air into alveolar air. As we see, the partial pressure of oxygen in the atmospheric air is 159 mmHg, whereas in the alveoli, partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mmHg. So there is a pressure gradient of 55 mmHg. So oxygen easily enter from the atmospheric air into the alveoli. Diffusion of oxygen from alveoli into blood. Here we'll see the diffusion of oxygen from alveoli into the blood. Here we'll see in the alveolus partial pressure of oxygen is 104 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial end is 40 mmHg. And here we'll see the oxygen content at the arterial end is 14 ml percent, and whereas the oxygen content in the venous end it is 19 ml percent. So the oxygen transported from the alveoli to blood means 5 ml of the oxygen is transported per 100 ml of the blood. We'll see diffusion of the carbon dioxide. First we'll see diffusion of carbon dioxide from blood into alveoli. Here we'll see the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in alveoli is 40 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in blood is 46 mmHg. So there is a pressure gradient of 6 mmHg. Okay, we'll see here partial pressure of CO2 is 40 mmHg, whereas at the arterial end it is 46 mmHg. There is a pressure gradient of 6 mmHg. So CO2, carbon dioxide easily diffuse from pulmonary capillary to the alveolus. Diffusion of carbon dioxide from alveoli into the atmospheric air. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is very less, means very significant, about 0.3 mmHg, whereas in alveoli it is 40 mmHg. So it is more. So carbon dioxide easily enters, passes to atmosphere from alveoli. Exchange of respiratory gases at tissue level. Oxygen enters the cell of tissues from blood, and carbon dioxide is expelled from the cell into the blood. Here we'll see diffusion of oxygen from capillary to the tissues. Okay, so partial pressure of oxygen in the tissue is 40 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure of oxygen at the arterial end is 95 mmHg. If we'll see, the oxygen contained here in the arterial end is 19 ml%, and the oxygen contained in the venous end is 14 ml%. So, so the oxygen which is diffused from capillary to tissue means it is approx 5 ml 5 ml per 100 ml of the blood. Diffusion of the oxygen from tissues to capillary. Here we'll see there is a partial pressure of CO2 at tissue is 46 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure at the arterial end is 40 mmHg. So there is a pressure gradient of 6 mmHg. So carbon dioxide is easily diffused from tissues to capillary. Okay, in this cycle we'll explain about the partial pressure and content of oxygen and CO2 in content of oxygen and carbon dioxide in blood, alveoli and tissue. Here we'll see this is the deoxygenated blood and this is the oxygenated blood. First of all, we'll see as we had already seen the diffusion of gases, means carbon dioxide and oxygen. This is a summary, means first of all, we'll see the diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to blood. Partial pressure of oxygen in alveoli is 102 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure of oxygen in blood is 40 mmHg. So with the pressure, oxygen is easily transport with the pressure gradient of 64 mmHg. It easily facilitates the diffusion of oxygen from alveoli to the blood. Next is diffusion of the carbon dioxide from blood into alveoli. Partial pressure of the carbon dioxide in alveoli is 40 mmHg, whereas partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood is 46 mmHg. Here there is a pressure gradient of 6 mmHg, due to which it easily facilitates the diffusion of carbon dioxide from blood to the alveoli. Here we'll see the transport of oxygen from blood to tissues. Partial pressure of oxygen in tissue is 40 mmHg, whereas the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood is 95 mmHg. Here we'll see the oxygen contained in the blood is 19 ml%, and here we'll see it is 14 ml%. So about 5 ml of per 100 ml of oxygen is transported in the blood. And if we'll see the diffusion of next is diffusion of carbon dioxide from tissues to the blood. If we'll see the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the tissue is 46 mmHg, whereas partial pressure of CO2 partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood is 40 mmHg. So here there is a pressure gradient of 6 mmHg, or we can say the content of the carbon dioxide content in the blood is 48 ml at the arterial end, and content of the blood in the content of the carbon dioxide in the blood, it is 52 ml%. So there is about 4 ml of the carbon dioxide 4 ml of the carbon dioxide per 100 ml of the blood is diffused from tissues to blood. So here we'll wind up, and in the next lecture we'll see the transport of the respiratory gases. Thank you.